According to NCRB, 13,892 students committed suicide. Why do you think suicides happen?
Two main reasons, Sureen. The first reason is academic pressure, and then the second thing is parental or societal pressure. A lot of parents have this thing that I didn't get to do it, so my child should do it. Say a parent compares their child to another child, saying, look, that kid is getting such good grades and you're not doing this.
Can you tell me what happens to the kid when that is heard for the first time?
No, you are saying, look at them, he's studying better, but what you are instead telling your child is that you're not good enough.
A kissing scene used to come in the television, the parents used to close the eyes of the kids. And this kid is to be in 9th grade and 10th grade, correct? When do kids know about sex?
I learned about sex when I was in 3rd grade, and not through my parents but through a friend in a school bathroom. If your child doesn't talk to you about this, they will talk to someone else about it regardless.
What happens because of social media? Can we talk about that?
The longer your child is on Instagram, all of this, one, you'll see a lot of things change about them. I'm not as pretty as this person, I'm not as rich as this person, I'm not as well traveled as this person. So for a child sitting at home, all they can see is what I don't have. Every child starts off with their parent as their best friend. They are going to come share everything that happened in school, with themselves, everything. But the minute
2023, according to NCRB, 13,892 students committed suicide. Just think about it. The intention of this episode is for kids and for parents so that they can watch and do things where this can be prevented. That's the intention of this episode. Why do you think suicides happen?
two main reasons, Sureen. The first reason is academic pressure, right? Especially in a country like India, where academics is considered everything. The pressure of it, especially for a young, a teenager or a young child, it's gigantic. And then the second thing is parental or societal pressure. Again, related to academics, sometimes not. But we for kids, it's very hard these days for kids to just be kids. We expect them to do so much and live and be, such bigger people, and it becomes hard. And those two main reasons are one of the biggest issues that the country faces today.
So we'll take it like societal pressure, parental pressure.
Yeah.
We'll start with parental pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. And somehow I feel that they want to live their life through their kids. So when you say parental pressure, what all things actually happen?
This main thing that you said, right, living your life through your kids. A lot of parents have this thing that I didn't get to do it, so my child should do it. So from a very early age, they train their kid in a way where whatever they didn't get to do, suppose they wanted to be a doctor and they couldn't be a doctor, then the child starts getting put in fancy dress competitions as a doctor, early, from like 3 years onwards, right? So that is a huge thing that happens. Parental pressure can show up in so many ways. When, say, a parent compares their child to another child, saying, look, that kid is getting such good grades and you're not doing this.
It happens in almost every home, right?
Yeah.
Every home.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happens to the kid when that is heard for the first time and
Absolutely.
they repeatedly get to hear this? What happens?
Yeah. Look, for a child, their parents are their everything. Their first point of contact into this world, parents that they look up to, that they love, respect, adore. And, so which means when there is someone like that, a child will take anything that you say to heart. And the minute you make a comparison, then the child, it's horrible for their self-esteem, right? Because you've just taught the child that you are saying, look at them, he's studying better, but what you are instead telling your child is that you're not good enough.
See, basically that's what subconsciously the child hears.
Yes. I'm sure that for parents, they've heard from their parents, and I know that they mean it in all good intentions, right? They want their child to do well and, to become the best versions of themselves. But, doing it this way, and it keeps happening again and again, right? It all adds up. And for a child, they don't have the emotional capacity of an adult to kind of, figure out psychologically that, okay, they're saying it for my good. They just look at it as, my parent probably is not proud of me, does not love me, and thinks that I'm not, good for anything. So more than I am not enough, they also feel the feeling that, because I'm not this, I'm not loved.
Okay, so that's what ends up. Now
Yeah.
tell me this, with your mother, Dr. Sharmila Anand, you've met a lot of kids, right?
Yeah.
You get to counsel a lot of kids. Parental pressure, what all the problems you've seen? What all kids come up with? I know the list is big. Tell me what all you can tell me on top of your mind.
So much happens, Suren, and I think if you look at all of the kids that we've worked with, a lot of their issues start at home. I hate to say this, but that's what happens, right? So if they have self-esteem issues, it starts from home. If they're having issues with love or relationships, all of these things, it starts at home. If they're not doing well academically, and all of those things, that also starts at home. So a lot of these things of pressure from a parent, again, a child is just a growing child, right? You keep saying that children are like clay and they can be molded. So when we are at such an impressionable age, anything that you say, the way that you say it, all of it matters. And even now, I would say that, of course, as parents, you need to correct and guide and do all of these things, because otherwise kids become brats. But there's also a way of doing it. So I would say it's as simple as, instead of comparing one child to another, use a child as an inspiration and say, oh, look, this person's, done so much. And there's a different way of, it's all about tonality and how you say it and how the message lands. Now, if your child feels like the child is getting compared to and they're getting demeaned, then they're not going to feel motivated to make themselves better. But if they feel like, okay, there is so much personal development that I can do, that I can be, then there's a motivation that comes in.
So the switch which parents need to do is, instead of comparing, can you have a conversation and tell what is that you want to communicate?
Yeah.
And communicate in a way which can inspire them to take the action which you want them to take, so that they can be happy and successful.
Absolutely.
Correct? So it's just the switch. But parents need to be conscious about it. Correct? Yeah. Because as you rightly said, it's not every parent is good, according to me. I just want to do a disclaimer here. I really believe every parent is good. Every kids are very smart. And if given the correct environment, they will shine and do what they're good at. If you're given the right environment. The key is the right environment, which includes the parents, the school, the friends, society, everything put together. Yeah. Now we know what all the problems are. The first set we're talking about parents now. So first switch is, can you communicate in a way where you can inspire the kid?
Yes.
Right? Rather than just compare. Okay, that's step number one. Yeah. So you said self-esteem issues, right? Yeah. And we're also seeing a lot of things happening. Now tell me this, you're 22, correct? Now, I remember when I was growing up, when something used to come, a kissing scene used to come in the television, the parents used to close the eyes of the kids. And this kid is to be in 9th grade and 10th grade, correct? When do kids know about sex? Tell me that.
Way too early. Like,
okay, what is way too early?
If you have a number in mind, it's probably like -5 of that. Like, okay. I will tell you personally, I learned about sex when I was in 3rd grade. And not through my parents, but through a friend in a school bathroom.
Oh boy. So 3rd grade, you got to know about sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm 22. So I'm sure that, kids younger get to know much
So
earlier.
The generation right now should be 3rd grade for sure, or second one, we don't know.
Anything. Yeah, we really
whatever version of sex they're going to hear from outside. It's going to be generally from the friends in school or somebody, right?
Yes, correct.
Now, what did you do first time when you got into it? Did you go and talk to your parents, or what did you do?
Absolutely. First, I was shocked, shell-shocked, right? And at that age itself, I wanted to test out whether my parents would tell me the truth or lie to me. So first thing I went up to my mom after school and I asked her, so what is sex? And thankfully, she was at a place where she was a doctor. So she, explained it in a way where, things were okay.
I think your mother is 1 in 1,000 would have done that. 999 would have deflected it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Now tell me what happens when a parent deflects that question. Tell me that.
You are immediately creating this sex as a taboo topic in your home, right? So anything related to feelings, relationships, emotions, physical, feelings that kids are going through, they will not feel comfortable or trust you enough to come talk to you about it. And that is a big problem.
So what people need to understand watching this podcast is
Yeah.
the first time when a kid comes and speaks to you about it or opens a topic,
Yeah.
you deflecting is starting something which is going to down spiral and end up in very crazy complications.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yeah.
So the best thing is to actually talk to the kid because they know it anyway.
Yeah.
Correct? That's the whole truth.
Yes.
So I don't know. So what you're saying is you are third grade.
Yeah.
So technically, currently children at first grade, second grade or UKG would come and have this conversation.
Yeah, potentially. Absolutely.
So now tell me, for a parent, what do you tell a UKG kid who comes and asks about sex?
So it depends, right? So of course, may keep it age appropriate, whatever. My mom didn't, explain in detail, but the truth is, when I went up to her and asked her, I knew because my friend told me, right? So for each parent in each family, just pulse out your child, see where they're at. If they're older, of course, they would probably know a bit more. Younger kids probably know a bit lesser. But whatever you feel is appropriate and something that the child should know, especially, these days we talk about how important it is to make sure that your kids know their private parts and all of these things. So I think more than waiting for your kid to come talk to you, being open about it from the get-go, and instead of having your child's eyes be closed during a movie scene, that's of course like outdated, right?
I know. Hopefully people don't do that. Do people still do that?
Yeah, lots of parents.
Okay. Oh boy. You're telling me still in 2026 people do it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. I get it. It's difficult. You don't want to have that conversation with your child. Of course, there are still these boundaries you don't want to cross. But I would still say that just helping your child know that there is a safe space at home where no matter what happens, no matter what conversation you want to have regarding your feelings, your emotions, thoughts that you're having, it is okay. Because again, I will say this, if your child doesn't come up to you and if your child doesn't talk to you about this, they will talk to someone else about it regardless. So you can't prevent your child from knowing about this or talking about this, but you can figure out whether they should do it with you or with an outsider who can give them any sort of weird information.
Thank you, Ashley, because I think you hit it right on the nail. As you rightly said, the minute the kid is curious, it wants to know, correct? And it's better if the parent starts talking, because that's where you build the trust with the kid.
Yeah.
And as you rightly said, the key is to create a safe space.
Okay.
Because we know today where social media is, bullying is going to happen in school, peer pressure, hundreds of things are going to happen. And we want the kid to come and talk to their parents first. Yeah. When the communication is open, half the problem is solved, correct? And the kid will always come and tell the parent. Now, both of us know that when do they stop telling is because when the parent either judges what they say. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime your child comes up to you and shares something deeply personal or emotional or anything that they're going through, your body language matters. The way that you respond at that moment matters. Because like you rightly said, every child starts off with their parent as their best friend. They are going to come share everything that happened in school, with themselves, everything. But the minute, like, you said, if there is even a slight bit of, anger that you show, or you shame them, or, there's some sort of way where you're making them feel guilty for their action, then they will kind of come, like they will want to, how do I say that? They will want to not share anything with you anymore, right? Because the minute they feel judged by you for sharing that, they will just draw that invisible line right there saying, okay, I can't share this with mom and dad.
Now tell me, one of the things is the data says if 10 kids you talk, at least 3 or 4 have gone through child abuse, correct? And what really shatters me is they don't come and tell home, correct? And they play victim, and what happens to them when they grow up is that's the pattern which is repeating. Their whole life is screwed because of that one instant,
correct,
where it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Someone did something wrong, not them, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Have you seen cases like this?
Absolutely, too many, Suren, and it really breaks my heart because there are cases where kids go up to their parents and talk to their parents about it, and the way that the parent responds is so heartbreaking that the child never feels safe enough to, really understand the trauma that's happened to them and to process that. Right, the minute there are so many cases where the parent will say, "Oh, what did you do? What were you wearing?" And just kind of, or something like, okay, let's not talk about this, what's done is done. And there have been cases where kids have gotten slapped and beaten by their parents for sharing, you know things which, like you said, it's not their fault. And when something like this happens, right, it's a traumatic event that's happened in a child's life, and especially when they're growing up, which means that, as a parent, as an adult, you really need to first step up and help your child go through this pain. And you can't take it away, sure, but you don't have to add on to the pain. I think that's a huge thing that I wish I could scream at the top of my lungs and have every parent hear this, because and there are so many parents themselves who've gone through this pain, so they know what it's like. And I think having that open, non-judgmental conversations, and even if it's not happened, telling your child again and again and again that if something happens, come and talk to me, reach out to me no matter what. The level of confidence and the backing that you give to a child when your child knows that my parents will stand by me no matter what is the best gift that you can give your child as a parent.
We need to educate the kid, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what education the parents have to do, no matter who they are?
Yeah.
Because if you don't educate, they won't know what is a good touch, what is a bad touch, everything. Can you explain that first?
Absolutely.
Let's prevent it first, then see how
Yeah.
to solve it.
Yeah. So when your child is young and they're able to understand simple things like, what are your private parts, things that this is good touch, bad touch, and actually sitting and having that conversation with the child again and again and again, especially younger kids, right? And asking them about their day, being involved in your child's life to know who are they interacting with, at what time, is everything okay? All of these things are very, very important. As your child grows older, and say they're entering their pre-teenage phase or their teenage phase, especially knowing who your child talks to online, because there are a lot of cases where your child might be talking to someone a lot older and you don't even know, right? So knowing who are your child's friends, how are they as people. I know a lot of people might think this is helicopter parenting or whatever, but just basic safety measures to take, because feelings are completely normal for youngsters to develop. But who are they developing these feelings towards? Are there the right people in their lives? All of these things, I think, is a responsibility of a parent to know and to safeguard your child till a point where they can take care of themselves.
Correct, Ashley. Okay, so preventive 2-3 things. One, explain good touch, bad touch. But one of the things I really feel every parent has to tell is, if something like this happens,
Yes.
I think the kid should scream.
Yeah.
Because the people who do it are very, very, I would say, not courageous people. They're weak people for whatever reason, right? If the kid screams, they will get shit scared.
Yeah.
Step number one, because I think you have to prevent it at the root. If by chance it happens, they have to go and tell the parents.
Yes.
And the parents have to take up the task. Whoever it is, address it so that it never happens again for any other child.
Absolutely.
It's a duty of every single parent.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be done in this country, because this is so bad. And we have seen so many cases, even in success gyan rooms. I see people who are 35, 40, 45, 50 years old. And if you really process them, something happened when they were 8 years old.
Yeah.
And they've not healed. And you feel sorry for them because they don't have a relationship right now.
Yeah.
Because something which happened of no fault of theirs.
Yeah.
So this is something which needs to be addressed in the bud. Anybody watching this, it's your moral duty. We need to solve this problem. I know you're getting a lot of cases like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, so you said, okay, if they come and talk to them, make them understand, help them go through the situation. Now, that's one case of here. We started with suicides, right?
Yes.
Now, can you show some behaviors?
Mhm.
Because I feel sometimes parents are also blinded. You feel sorry for them. They have no clue what is happening in childs because the kid goes to school, comes back, suddenly doesn't start talking the way it used to talk.
Yeah.
And they have no idea why. Correct? So can you tell me few behaviors that's the parents, if a child does this, they will know this is why they're doing. Can you tell us few behaviors?
Absolutely, Suren. So the first thing, like you said, is the minute that they start being overly detached from you, or they're going and locking themselves in their room, all of these things, just be like, have a note that maybe your child is going through something. It doesn't have to be anything abusive, but it can just be some sort of emotional pain that they're going through, something happening at school. So I'll talk about cases like that. The second thing is, if their academics, like your child is doing academically really well and suddenly something, and then their academics completely drops, and you see that there's a lack of motivation happening, and the first thing you'll think of is, what is going on? Like, my child was doing so well academically. You can try changing tutors, schools, all of this, but you need to also address the root cause there. The third thing is,
so these are red flags for
red
us.
flags.
Correct.
Yeah.
The first red flag, if the kid locks inside suddenly very often,
Yeah.
we need to figure out what it is.
Yes.
Maybe have a conversation, check out what it is.
Yeah.
Because something has happened.
Yes.
Right? Same thing you're saying, academically, suddenly the kid starts doing really bad.
Yeah.
Definitely something has happened.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. The third thing is, if you notice how they talk about themselves, or if they talk, is there a negative, connotation that happens? Like, if they say things like, I'm so stupid, I can't do this. And, like, kids start off small like that, but then that also showcases that somewhere deep inside, they're going through self-esteem issues. And if you don't take care of that at that point, then it can grow on to becoming a much bigger problem, where their behavior starts changing and so much more. So definitely the third thing is, look at how they're talking. The minute your child starts being overtly negative, or feeling like you can see that their self-confidence is going down, definitely step in as a
So
parent.
that's a red flag. Something has happened.
Yeah.
Where the kid has felt, I don't deserve, or I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And that's why the language has changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to figure that out.
Yes.
Or else it's going to again down spiral.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. And then the fourth thing I would say is, also notice what other people around them are constantly telling them. Especially, grandparents, they have, of course, grandparents, family members, they have the tendency to comment on children and their bodies, saying, you're too dark, you're too thin, all of these things. But without knowing also, this really creates a lot of self-esteem issues in kids. And they start feeling like, I'm not good enough. And the way that they view themselves really becomes difficult, and they even start having things like eating disorders because of this. So definitely keep your ears out for that. And then I would also say that, if your child is getting into that like teenage phase, where they're having body hair coming up, or acne, and all of these things, these things, because it's a new change for a child, that also creates a lot of self-esteem issues, especially when in school that's not happening to other kids yet, or this is happening more to your child. Definitely there's a hit of confidence that it takes, right? So addressing that at home, making sure you're taking the right steps towards that, will definitely be important.
Body shaming at home.
Yeah.
How does it affect the kid? Because it might be a passing comment. It might be a very, very loosely said comment where the parent has no idea they said it, or somebody in the family said it, like you said, grandmother, grandfather, passing comment. How does it hit the kid? And how does it slowly start building? And where does it lead?
Oh, this is a huge topic, right? And it really breaks my heart, because a lot of our students who come to us, you can tell, and looking at the child, that the child is amazing, but you can really tell how all of these comments have broken a child's self-confidence, because they start believing that they are not good enough, they're not pretty, they're not handsome, and the way that they start treating themselves, one is horrible, right? The second is, if you don't feel worthy, and if you don't feel like you're good enough, then you will let anyone around you treat you however they want to treat you. And these are places where kids get into toxic relationships, where the other person is straight up, emotionally abusive, and the kid feels like, I'm not this, pretty actor kind of person. I'm, ugly, or I'm fat the way that my family tells me, or I'm too thin, or I'm too dark, and all of these things. So they really start feeling like these things that you label your child with is what becomes their identity. And it's very hard for them to gain that confidence after that, to look beyond that, or to see who they are as a person. And the biggest thing that I would say is, when they get into relationships, they really start accepting anything that is completely not okay. And it's a huge problem. And you'll see that it shows up in every part of their, life. So they'll start participating less in competitions or anything that makes them that needs to put them in a spotlight, and their confidence in academics takes a toll. So a lot of these small things that you really from outside feels like it's completely different, they're really not, because you're sowing that seed of I'm not good enough.
If the foundation is strong at home, if the kid is loved enough,
Yeah.
it's got a safe space,
Yeah.
it's got a cushion to at least take care of what happens outside.
Correct.
If the problem starts at home,
It's very difficult.
it's going to be very, very, very difficult. So there's something very, very critical, very important for everyone watching this podcast. Please understand, the one passing line you say can subconsciously be impregnated, and it will really, really affect the kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would always say that as a parent, if you look back at things that you constantly tell yourselves, even till date, I'm sure you will hold on to some statements that you were told as a child. So do you really want to be doing that to your child? Number one. But number two, do you really want to allow other people to do that to your child?
Correct.
Very important that you ask yourself that and put a stop to that. A lot of people say, what can I do if my parents are like this, or my grandparents, that's how they show their love. But you are their parent, and whatever you decide, that your child will hear or not hear is what, society or your extended family as a whole. So if you see my mom, she does not entertain any negative comments like this from my family towards me at all. So as a kid, I used to get told, because I was very thin growing up, and my mom would literally, she can be, and she would tell people, you call me the black sheep, whatever, you hate me all you want, but you will not tell my daughter all of these unnecessary things.
Okay.
She knows she is healthy, and that's it, that's the end. And I think it's very important, because as children don't know how to take a stand for themselves yet. So as a parent, if they see that you're taking a stand for them, that in itself gives your child so much confidence to tackle whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah, the love and respect for you also goes up, and
Really does.
they know there's a safe space at home. There's somebody who takes care of the back, and they can deal with what happens outside.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go to what happens outside, I want to take the side of the parents also, correct?
Yeah.
One of the things is kids don't listen to them, correct? They're not able to communicate. They're always on gadgets.
Yeah.
That's something which every parent says, right? So what do we do for that?
Okay. I mean, I'll address it one by one. So should we take gadgets
Let's
first?
go with gadgets, yeah.
I know it's a huge problem, and I don't think it's just a problem with kids, right? I think us as like a whole society, we're going through this gadget addiction, and I would not say it's anything. I would say it's at the same level as smoking and drinking. It is a huge problem.
It's an addiction. Yeah.
It is an addiction, period. And if you look at it, and I would agree with you that especially now, the number of hours kids on an average are on their phones and their devices is, I think, 5 hours plus.
Yeah.
And you can sure blame the child, but it's also how social media and everything is designed, right? All of these billion-dollar corporations, they're pumping in money to make sure that your viewing experience, and they want you to be on the apps for as long as possible, and it becomes an addiction. So I think dealing with this needs to be a team effort. Again, like, if someone quits smoking, there would be like a withdrawal period that they go through. I would say it's the same thing with social media and, reducing that. A lot of students who come to us, they realize that social media is bad, or they spend too long. I know that they have these goals that I want to get good marks in 10th grade, 12th grade. I want to go. All of this, kids are not dumb. They know that social media, they're spending too much time, 5-6 hours. They also know it's affecting their sleep, it's affecting their health, it's affecting their academics. They're aware of that. But the problem is, how do they overcome it?
They know it's an issue, but they don't know
Yes.
how to not do it.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
And I would say even as adults, it's difficult for us to
Yeah, I
not
was
pick
about
up.
to say that a parent who complains a kid not to see social media first should not be in social media.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Your kid will never listen to you,
Yes.
but they will do what you do.
Yeah.
Now to the next problem. Okay, for a kid which is on gadgets, who wants to reduce it,
Yes.
let's talk to the kids.
Yeah.
What will be a message to be? How do they do it?
So logically, this is what I've done, right? So the first thing that I've done is switch off all notifications on places like Instagram, YouTube, all of these things, right? Because the minute a notification, again, it's designed to get you to click that, to go there and all of that. And also to keep a physical tab of what your screen time is. Of course, now across all gadgets, you have this
You have the
option
data
of-
to know how much
Yeah.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really telling you, Suren, it helps, because 1 week, if you consistently write down what your screen time is, at the end of the 7th day, you yourself kind of tell yourself, I need this intervention, and you work towards not doing those things.
Why do you want kids to moderate? Because what happens because of social media? Can we talk about that? Then we'll tell the kids to reduce it.
Yeah.
Because you've seen a hell a lot of cases.
Yeah.
What happens because tell me what happens because of social media.
We think it's harmless, right? We think social media, we're going there to relax, just watch a couple of reels, we're learning things and all of these things. But essentially what happens, Suren, is say 20 years ago, as a kid, you would compare yourself and your life to, say, the classmates that you have around you, probably your neighborhood friends that
That's
you
your
have.
exposure. You go
That's
to
the
school, you have
exposure.
friends at school,
Yeah.
you come back home, you have neighbors.
Yeah.
These are the people you know.
Yeah, that's all.
Mm.
Right? So your self-esteem, self-confidence, all of these things, kind of, that's what you compare
So
yourself
that's
with.
a reference point.
Reference point, exactly. But now with social media, and every 5 seconds you have a different reference point that you're actually exposing yourself to. You don't know what is going to come on your feed, but your brain subconsciously registers every single thing that you see. So you see these people with amazing hair and great bodies, and they're taking these vacations and all random things that you're exposed to, but you start developing this inferiority complex about yourself. Because every person that you see on social media, you are you are not consciously comparing, but you're subconsciously comparing your life to their life. And this keeps happening on a day-to-day basis. And kids, of course, when you're seeing this and you're seeing everyone's life is so much better than yours, supposedly.
Which is not true.
Not true at all.
Because what you see in Instagram is what people want to show
you.
Not the 99% which is true.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth, but your mind doesn't work like that.
Exactly. Your mind believes what it sees, right? And it creates such a, it leaves you first wanting for so much more. Second is, it leaves you feeling like you are not good enough again. And that it really becomes difficult for you to appreciate the things that you have in your life when it's that constant comparison cycle that's going, right? And in most cases, what we've seen is, the longer your child is on Instagram, all of this, one, you'll see a lot of things change about them. So because of that consumerism and all of that, the things that they want to buy, everything, if you see, they will want to hop on a trend, which is very normal for a child, because they don't have that awareness. Even as adults, it's difficult for us to realize, when we're buying into something, right? But the main thing that also happens is, through all of this, their self-esteem really takes a huge beating and a crash. Because I'm not as pretty as this person, I'm not as rich as this person, I'm not as well traveled as this person. So for a child sitting at home, all they can see is what I don't have. And I
Which
think
means I don't have this boyfriend, I don't have this girlfriend, I don't have this lavish lifestyle,
Yeah.
I don't have these nice, I don't look so good.
Yeah.
So it's only lack.
Lack. Yeah.
Okay. So the lack is subconsciously, it's not even conscious. So what all effect happens because of this? Because this happens to every kid. Every kid, no matter
Yeah.
what is provided for them,
Yeah.
no matter how good things are at home,
Yes.
it's going to happen to every kid, right?
Correct.
Okay. So for that reason, social media moderation has to happen.
Yeah.
There's some countries which has banned social media for till 16 years.
Yes.
Do you think it's right or wrong?
I think it's absolutely right. I mean, I know if I was a teenager, I would have, fought against it and all of these things. But honestly, growing up, I can see how much social media affects me as a 22-year-old. And we don't even realize how much it affects us till we really take a step back and we realize, whoa,
Yeah.
what is happening. So as for a kid growing up and social media, we can say like when I was like 15, 16 using social media, I would say things like, yeah, I'm learning so much and all of that. Sure, you learn a lot and there are a lot of positive things to social media, but also the things that you're exposed to and you subconsciously the things that happen, it is scary.
So the harm it does is more than the benefits it gives.
Yeah.
Okay, now tell me this. When should a parent give a phone to a kid with social media?
Right now, for safety reasons, a lot of kids have phones at much younger ages. But a phone with social media, I've seen parents who are completely against social media and they don't even give their child phones, right? But I also know that as a teenager, we're very cunning in a way where we will go to school and use someone else's phone to log into our all of these things. So I would really say, my mom, she told me when I was growing up that I would not get a phone till I was in college. And I was the biggest rebel against that thing, right? So I would really say that for every family, it could be different.
So you can't give a one thing.
I
Depends on the environment, depends
Yeah.
on safety,
Yes.
depends on things. So we
Yeah.
can't put a age.
But I would say that when it comes to social media, having a limit on that, because see, if I see a chocolate in front of me, I am going to want to go, that distraction is going to be there. And if you expect your child to be this self-controlled child who will not go on social media, it's very difficult,
Not
right?
gonna
Like,
happen.
let's be realistic.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. So in cases like when I was in, when I was writing my boards, my mom after 10 p.m. she would come take my phone away. And at that time I would be very irritated saying she doesn't trust me and all of these things. But I'm very glad that she did that looking back now, because as a kid after 10, am I really going to go to sleep or am I going to scroll on social media?
Bang on.
Yeah.
And because kids go till 12, 1, you know what happens.
Yeah.
So for all the kids watching, if your parents take your phone at 10 p.m., you might hate it, but
you'll
that's the
thank them.
right thing for it. You might thank it when you grow up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me societal problems, we said, right?
Yeah.
We spoke a little about social media, right? Now let's talk about a little peer pressure here.
Yes.
What happens at school? What is peer pressure? And I know drugs is a huge problem today,
Mhm.
right? Especially kids, because we just saw a study that alcohol consumption in the country has come down.
Yes.
I was very happy. But the underlying study said because it's come down because
Hmm.
a lot of weed started,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct? And for me, that was really scary. Can you tell me, according to you, from what cases you've seen,
Mhm.
what age do some kids use weed?
Very early, Suren. We've seen kids use weed from as early as 6th grade itself. And and they start taking up smoking, drinking, all of these things. I feel like every year that we work with children, the age kind of goes lower and lower and lower, and it's very scary to see. But we also need to realize that in a lot of these cases, one, it's peer pressure, where the school or the environment that the child is in, one person starts doing it and it becomes this cool thing to do, and the kids take it up. But also, if you look at the underlying reason or the reason behind why certain kids take something up, there's always an emotional pain or problem that the child is going through, where they numb themselves using these things. They might not know that that's what's happening, but the minute something, parents are getting divorced at home or something is happening, and they feel like, okay, with my friends I'm going to have fun, and this fun will include whatever it is, substances that it includes, and they feel that temporary sense of pain getting subsided, then they will want to go back to it again and again and again. So it's very important, and a lot of the reasons, or we can always easily map it to something a child is going through at home or in their personal lives, or if they're having self-esteem issues, a lot of these things. And and it just happens. So it's, as a parent, being aware of how is your child, a lot of parents, they know their child's credit, like report cards, right? And they know that the marks, this is what my child is getting. But do you know how your child is doing mentally? Do you know how your child is doing emotionally? Are they okay? Are they more sad, or are they happier? All of these things, I think, for a parent to have a holistic picture is very important. And also to know who your child is hanging out with, right? Because everyone says, right, you are the equal of the 5 people that you hang out with. So there have been cases where my mom has like put her foot down, and she would say, and she would be a parent, of course she would be friendly and be there for me. But there are cases, especially when I was growing up, where she had to put a foot down. She would put a foot down and say, you cannot hang out with this person. And at that time, anger, all of these things is normal for a teenager to feel. But as a parent, protecting your child and putting your foot down where it's needed, they will thank you later. And I've thanked her multiple times later.
Yeah, so I think that's
Yeah.
critical for parents watching this also. You should know where to put your foot down.
Yes.
Very, very, very important, because one problem with the current society is people who are 30, 35, 40, when they grew up, it was lack at home. It was middle class. So they didn't have stuff, maybe they didn't get toys, they didn't get whatever. So when they had kids right now, what do? They give everything the kid asks. So that kids are really pampered,
Yeah.
correct? And in their head that I didn't get it, I want my kids to get it. That's the thought process, which is a good way of seeing it. But what happens when they pamper is the kid never gets a no.
Yes.
It has no idea how to deal with failure,
Yeah.
correct? And once they get pampered, they can't take a no, right? If I want to go do a night stay with the friends of mine, you can't say a no there because you've never done a no, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying ideally is you should know where to put your foot down.
Yes.
Also, substance abuse is an addiction.
Yes.
There's something you want to numb, correct? Because the same school, there's certain kids who don't do it.
Yeah.
The environment is the same, right? The same peer pressure still applies there.
Yeah.
Why don't those kids don't do it? Is because the things are much more safe at home.
Yes.
They don't have an emotional imbalance. There's no emotional turmoil happening, and they not get pulled by it. They don't have any feeling to numb,
Correct.
right? So that's critical,
Yeah.
right? Now tell me this, because I don't want to scare people here. Now, when you say weed, very young age, 6th grade, 7th grade, is it only city kids you're talking about, or this is across the country, rural also?
We've seen both.
You're saying even in tier 2, tier 3
Yes.
cities.
Yeah.
So it's not only a urban problem.
Yeah. No.
Oh,
It's
scary. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, now, how will a parent know if a kid is taking weed?
I mean, there are a lot of tell signs, right? Like we spoke about a few. If your child is being, reclusive, they're shutting themselves out, you will see in the beginning, maybe it's not very apparent, but there will be shifts in behavior. And there are obvious signs where their eyes are red and all of these things. So I think as a parent, just being aware of your child. So when they come back from school or wherever, just doing a scan to make sure that are they okay, or Are they not? But again, I think kids are also smart,
Yeah.
right? So if they want to hide things, we're also very good at that. So you'll see that in a lot of these cases, it happens during like a night stay. And we had we had this one case where the parents were proper no drinking, no smoking household.
Which means they don't smoke, they don't drink.
They don't drink,
Okay.
and they're like completely against it, right? So it's a complete no at home. But then their daughter, of course, she wanted to experience all of these things. So what she would do is she would tell her parents that she's going to a trusted friend's house for a sleepover, and during that sleepover, her and the friends would essentially go out clubbing and partying and all of these things. Now, for a teenager, that can be very normal. Okay, my parents don't allow it, so I'm lying to them and I'm doing this. But a scarier thing is that if something happens to you when you are out clubbing or partying, your parents don't even know where you are, who you're with. They will have zero idea where to even look for you, right? And so we never think of the worst case scenario. We think of all the fun and all of that. But in the case where something goes wrong, who do you reach out to? What happens then? And I think that's a huge wake up call that I think all young adults should be thinking of as well. While it's all fun and games for a while, of course you're hurting your health every time you do it, but also you are not being safe. And that's a huge problem that only if it happens do you feel the pain of it, right?
So one message we want to clearly give for the kids is please don't abuse your freedom, because there's a trust which a parent has given you. I don't think you should break that trust.
Yeah.
Correct? I know it's very exciting when you're young that you want to do things which is never done. It gives you a kick, it gives you a thrill, and it's very normal, right? But having said that, the repercussions of it's going to be lifelong. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Kids, if you're watching this, do not abuse your freedom, right? Please don't abuse. Okay, now we're talking about addiction. Somebody going through an addiction, how do you bring them out?
So a parental intervention is very important, Suren, there.
Have you had cases like that?
Yes, absolutely. So again, there are cases where if you need to put them in like a rehabilitation center.
If it's really worse,
If it's really bad, yes, going there is important. I think there's a lot of taboo even now against those things, right? But when your child needs help, give your child the help. And there are so many kids I know that go up to their parents and tell their parents, I'm not feeling okay, I need to speak to someone. And therapy is still such a taboo in India that when your child asks you for help and you deny it, or you say, what do you need to go talk to a therapist for, come talk to me, that is not a solution. You are actually making the problem worse, and there is going to come a time where every child has a breaking point. So everything that you see, substance abuse or self-harm or anything, is a child having crossed all of these stages where they've asked for help or there have been signs, and then they go to a point there where they do that because they don't see any other option available. So whether it's taking your child to go talk to a coach or a therapist, whatever it is, but getting your child the help that they need. Help is not taking away that pack of cigarette and grounding your child. That is not going to help at all. In fact, it's going to create resentment. Your child is going to learn better ways of hiding it from you, but it's not going to change the issue. And also understanding what is the emotional pain that your child is going through, especially in households where say the parents are going through a divorce, or there's been a death in the family, or even smaller cases like the child is not doing so well academically, so they might be comparing themselves to kids around them. But understanding or knowing the pulse of how your child is emotionally is very important, because like you rightly said, if a child is in a good mind space and is in a good space at home, then their ability to say no to a lot of things is a lot more different than a child who is struggling. And there are so many predators online and in real life that take advantage of kids who are going through these emotional problems. And it's so sad to see. We've had, children whose parents are going through a divorce, and so they're not able to emotionally open up at home, so they open up to a stranger online. And that leads to them sharing, sexual pictures of themselves online, and that being used against them. And they're just, it's horrible. And you never think, even as a teenager, I think as teenagers we all think that we're grown-ups and we're mature and all of these things. So we think that we can trust this person and that sharing pictures online is okay. But you never know, and you can never tell who to trust with, something like this. And when you get stuck in this situation like that, it's very difficult, and the emotional pain that you cause yourself is very, very difficult to come out of. So I would say that any teenager watching should definitely, no matter what, just do not share pictures of yourselves online, no matter how much pressure, it's said in such a nice way.
Emotional blackmail,
Yeah.
whatever.
No means no, right? And I think for a parent also, raising a child who is confident and can say no and stick by that no is so important. We're told as children that we should respect our adults and we should be nice and sweet, and all of these things we're told, but we're not told how to stand up for ourselves in situations where we should not be pushovers and let people make decisions like that, right? And just that one thing, if you raise your child to be confident and with that ability to say no, so many of these issues that most teenagers go through, your child will not have to go through.
The message you want to give loud and clear is please seek help. It is okay to seek help. Go to a therapist, go to a coach, or if it's really bad, go to a rehabilitation center. Do something, but it's okay to seek help.
Yes.
But also understand the kid is going through a worse problem than you. You might be mentally charged because of this happened, but the kid is going through a worse issue.
Yes.
So it's your duty to stay with the kid.
Yeah.
But it can be turned.
Yes.
We have seen enough cases where it has happened. The kid has never touched drugs after that, and they've really shined and doing really well.
Yes. Yeah.
Just be open to help, right?
Absolutely.
Now, we're going to talk about education system. Because I believe kids are very smart today, right?
Yeah.
Kids are extremely smart, tech savvy. With AI coming, they become very, very smart. They're going to a school where the education system is really outdated. Why? Because what happened 50 years is the same education system you're doing now. You're studying stuff which you don't need in real life.
Yeah.
And things which you need is not taught. Nobody teaches you how to handle failure. Nobody talks about money. Nobody talks how to handle relationship.
Yeah.
The things which you need in real life is not taught in schools, correct?
Yes.
And the teachers, I remember every teacher of mine, because I think we had fabulous teachers. Nothing against teachers, because I think they're paid very badly now.
Yeah.
The quality of teachers also has come down, right? Broken education system, teachers not equipped well, kids are very smart, brilliant in technology, is a potent combination for disaster. Right?
Yeah.
Because of this, what all problems are happening? Tell me.
Suren, kids are simply not interested in studying. It's as simple as that. I feel like, the most common thing that you keep getting told, right? Kids come up to you and they will literally say, what is the point of me studying this? And now this new thing has come that, ChatGPT can tell me this in 2 minutes. Why do I have to remember? And I am sorry, but I have to agree with them in a lot of these cases, right? Because, like the world is changing, but we still are so stuck to our older methods of rote learning and memorizing things. But is that really what kids need? And especially now, right, with our attention spans going down with social media, expecting a child to be tied to a desk for 8 hours in a day, coming back and then going for tuitions for another 2-3 hours in a day, I think is horrible, right? You are essentially making your child work the same amount of hours that a person working a corporate job is essentially working. Is that even, you are not letting your child be a child. there is no sense of letting them learn what they want to learn or telling them, real life thing. None of that exists, right? And it's just it really feels like a disaster waiting to happen.
So that's why they get distracted. They want things which they want to do. They go on
Yeah.
social media, do
Yeah.
stuff, whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what are we trying to cry out loud in this podcast? I think what we are trying to cry out loud is, I think the education system has to change. Correct?
Yeah.
I know it's not easy. It's a huge one.
Yeah.
A lot of things have to move. But I think somebody needs to have this conversation. The education has to change.
Yeah.
It has to be for the present times. Like AI has to come into the education system.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be part and parcel of life.
Absolutely.
You need to integrate AI into education system. You need to get real life skills which the kid needs when it grows up.
Yeah.
You need to have kids the choice of what they want to learn.
Yeah.
Don't memorize. I think memorizing is done.
Right?
Yeah, you don't need to memorize anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what we are crying out loud in this podcast is the world has to change, the education has to change, and we hope and pray that change
Yeah.
happens slowly. That's
It
the
will.
intention.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about the education system, see, previously, if you say when I was growing up, there were only two options, either engineering or doctor,
Yes.
lawyer, maybe accountant. There are only four things. We didn't know anything beyond that.
Yeah.
But today the kids have crazy options, right?
Yeah.
Now the world has changed very differently thanks to technology, AI all put together. You have vlogging, you can be an influencer, you can be a creator. The hundreds of options coming up, right?
Yes.
Now the current education system, how do you think it's equipped to deal with it? Or
It's
it's
not.
not equipped?
It's not.
Okay.
It's really not. I remember in 11th grade, I had just gotten textbooks from, from this board, and there was typewriting as a chapter. And I just remember looking at it, and I completely checked out mentally, because I'm like, why am I learning about typewriting? At that time, I think it was 2020 or 2021.
Okay, our generation should know that we went to typewriting class.
Exactly.
Okay?
Right?
Not joking.
Yeah.
Early morning, 5 o'clock, we used to go twice a week, thrice a week for a stupid typewriting class for what I don't know.
So
We are a dinosaur generation. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
like times really have changed, right, Suren? And I would say there are very few schools that are equipped to handle this change in a way where they're helping kids go through this. And I think as parents, you really need to figure out, schooling is one side, but what kind of education do you want your child to have? What kind of learning do you want your child to have? One thing I will be forever grateful for my mom too is that very early on, I think I was 13 or 14, and she put me into personal development programs, right? And that's how I met you. And that was so much fun. So as someone who hated school or did not love school, I still loved learning through personal development programs, because it was so easy for me to understand the real life application of it. So if your child is someone that hates school or does not like studying, then instead of trying to force it down them, or trying to thinking that your child is not going to amount to anything, helping them understand what their passions are and helping them really try and develop that will be a huge game changer in their lives.
I agree, Ashley, because there's one thing which I want to say out loud is not every kid is designed for academics.
Yeah.
Let's be very honest. And I've met some very, very smart, successful people who are miserable in school.
Yes.
Who are miserable in school, right? And it is okay.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is designed. Because the way the education system is designed is they have a metric and they put hundreds of different kind of kids with different strength, and they're measuring on the same metric.
Yes.
This kid might be strong in something else, this kid might be strong in something else, but you're not measuring on that strength.
Yes.
You're measuring on 10 things which you pre-designed.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair at all.
Yeah.
So one message I want to tell is it's okay. The kids don't enjoy academics.
Yes.
Because I think what the parents need to do is identify what the kid is passionate about.
Yes.
I think that's the key here. What is that they love doing?
Yeah.
It could be drawing, it could be dancing, it could be photography, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And if they can nurture and help the skill, develop it around it. Because if the kid can figure out a profession around the passion,
Yeah.
they can really shine.
They really can. Yeah.
And that's the way to go. So the
Yeah.
message to all parents is, if the kid is not doing well in academics, it is okay.
Yes.
Don't shove it in because it's not going to work. They're going to hate you. They're going to hate school. Then they're going to get numb and I don't know what they're going to do.
Yes.
Correct? So that's the message here, right?
Yeah.
Now tell me this. Which age group do kids get into their first relationship currently?
I mean, I think I've heard of third graders being in relationships, but I think, proper normal relationships around 7th and onwards.
7th
these
grade or
days, yeah.
6th grade, 7th grade.
Yeah,
Okay.
6th
When did you get into your first relationship?
I am not disclosing that.
Very smart, Ashley. Okay. Okay. When did you get your first breakup? At least tell me that.
I think 8th grade end.
So you're
So
also
you
the 6th
this
grade, 7th
yeah.
grade, 5th grade
Yeah,
only. Okay, we
yeah,
got you there.
yeah.
Okay. Now tell me, if a kid goes through whatever relationship they think they go through, a 3rd standard, 4th standard, and go through a breakup,
Yes.
right? Now, how do they deal with it and what happens because of that?
Oh, I mean, everything starts off all nice and butterfly, right? But I think it depends on the complexity or the level of involvement that they had in the relationship. So if they were completely, emotionally invested in the relationship and they go through a, heartbreak around that, then we still say that it creates a lot of emotional trauma for them. And each child reacts in a very different way. So some children completely, like take back and they don't, and they kind of have this stone wall around them saying, I'm never going to fall in love again. And, so kids go to that tangent. Or there are kids who, there might be patterns that keep repeating again and again and again. But in the midst of all of this, and the biggest issue that, when kids come to us, we see as well is that because of this, and because when you go through a breakup, it might take, a few days to heal, a few months to heal, a few years to heal. Their academics definitely, takes a hit. Sometimes, depending on the relationship and what they've gone through, their self-esteem, again, could completely, be shattered, and they need time and, effort to rebuild on that. So at that point as well, I know there are so many parents who don't even know that their child was in a relationship, is in a relationship, is talking to someone. And what that ends up doing, right? It's very easy for a parent to put a rule and say, you are too young, don't date. Right? And I think that's a very outdated approach.
Majority of the parents do that, right?
Yeah.
Just saying that until you're 21, do not have
Don't
a
date.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like,
Or a girlfriend, whatever.
yeah. But we read books, we watch movies, we are on social media, we have peers that get into relationship. It's very normal, and it is something that is bound to happen, that your child would want to explore these things. So if you put this block saying that, no, I'm not saying be okay with relationships, but by having this blanket statement of no, what you're essentially doing is you are telling your child that even if you have a crush, even if you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, even if you're going through a breakup, I am not available for you to come talk to me. And that creates so many problems, Suren. I've seen so many kids who put themselves in situations that they should not be in, putting up with shit that they should not be putting up with, all because they could never go up to someone and talk to them about this, right? And you never know how this person might turn out to be. There are a lot of times where relationships turn toxic, and there's a lot of verbal abuse that happens, sometimes physical abuse, all of these things. So in that place, as a parent, if you are not making yourself available to your child, saying that, it's completely normal to have feelings. If you have feelings towards anyone, come talk to me about it. We'll figure it out together. That is a whole different thing, because then your child will be comfortable enough to come tell you what is going on in my life, what is going on in my relationship, and you as a parent can then guide them saying, this is okay, these are red flags you need to be aware of. So a lot of the times, and this is what breaks my heart, right? We let kids suffer in silence and suffer alone. and the only people that are actually there for them are their friends, who might give good advice, who might not give good advice. But the question that I want to ask parents is your, thing of like, my child should not be in relationships, and keeping that facade and that no so strong, is it worth having your child suffer in pain and silence alone? That's
So
something
the
that,
message is
yeah,
loud and clear. Please be okay, because that's how the kid is going to grow.
yeah,
Relationships are going to happen. Can you have an open communication? Be a friend where they can openly come and tell what is happening.
yes,
Because if relationship are going to happen, breakups are going to happen.
yeah,
And they're going to go through whatever emotions.
yeah,
If they have a channel to come and talk, it
yeah,
will work.
yeah,
If it is blocked, we don't know how they're going to deal with it.
yeah,
And from there, what happens? So now tell me this, a scenario where a kid goes through a relationship in 5th grade, 6th grade and ends up badly.
yes,
Okay. So there's a self-esteem hit, confidence hit, and the kid is not telling things at home.
yeah.
What happens in the future?
So I've seen situations where, multiple relationships like this happen, right? Because, say for a young child, they want the love for whatever reason. They're seeing that, either my parents are divorced or they're going through their pain, and they want something to mask that, right? And these patterns get created. But later on, what ends up happening is either this keeps happening where they go into multiple relationships and each thing doesn't work out for XYZ reasons, or they go into these casual relationships where they feel that, friends with benefits is something that they want, and they try that out. I'm not saying, friends with benefits is wrong or anything like that, but in a lot of these cases, I think a lot of kids don't realize what emotional pain is it that they're going through, and how they're showing up in relationships, right? So understanding that, working on that, is what will help them get into like a proper relationship if that's what they want.
Yeah, because your friends and benefits are the longer run. You want to get it because you don't want to get into emotions. You
Yeah.
don't want to get into commitment.
Yeah.
But it's got a different set of worms you're opening up, right?
Yeah.
Right. And we don't know how you're going to deal with it. That's
Yes.
going to really beat you up in the longer run.
Yeah.
So the message here is, if you're going through a relationship, please talk to your parents, talk to someone, and the parents, please open.
Yes, please.
Please have a conversation, help the kid go through it, because your
Yeah.
kid is going to go through it.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And what I can't understand is parents forget how they were when they were kids.
Right?
I can't understand
Like,
that.
you had crushes when you were a kid.
Yeah.
You've had these first love, second love, all of these things. So when it comes to your child, I know you want to protect them, but I'm telling you, being able to, like my mom, both my parents actually, they're very open to me when it comes to relationships. So they tell me, first time you like someone, come talk to us about it. The level of relief it gives me, knowing that no matter what happens, all of that, I have parents I can go to and talk to, I would say saves me from 90% of nonsense that I could potentially go through. But I know that, I have friends, and I've seen, kids who come to us as well, who don't have that, or instead of, understanding supportive parents, have parents who are very strict and authoritative there. Like, it's just not worth it, Suren, and it really sends a kid down a very dark path, where either, like I said, they go through multiple relationships, multiple heartbreaks, or they go through casual, relationships, casual sex, and that opens up a huge thing for them, or they take up substance abuse. There's so much can happen, all because you decided that you cannot let your child talk to you about. Seriously, come on. Like the child, like I know you want to protect your child, but your child is probably going to have that breakup now or then. But you being there and helping them through that will really strengthen your bond with your child.
Yeah, that's critical as they
Yeah.
grow up. And one more thing I want to tell all the kids watching here is, please understand, you are a unique creation. Each one of us are unique. You are unique.
Yeah.
You're beautiful the way you are. Okay. And there's nothing lack in you. Just go live your life, have fun.
Yeah.
If you're going through a breakup, it is okay. That guy or that girl was not destined for you. And there's someone beautiful out there for you. That's
Yeah.
it. Nothing more, nothing less.
I love that.
Right?
Brilliantly put.
Yeah, nothing more, nothing less. Because you're a unique creation. Come on,
Yeah.
like a unique fingerprint, you're unique.
Yeah.
Just have fun. And for the parents, come on, man. It's high time.
Come on.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it's high time.
Yeah.
Please have a conversation. Can you be a friend to your kid? That's the most critical thing.
Yeah.
Because the minute you start becoming a friend, you'll understand. And that's how you can really help the kid go through these tough phases. We are living in a time where it is very tough for a kid. I really feel for the kids. It's extremely tough. As you rightly said, you're compared left, right, center, correct? And social media, all that peer pressure, I think the parents have to be the friends for the kids. That's why. Okay, now I want to take the parent side and ask this question, right? I find kids use these terms very easily. Toxic, narcissist. Suddenly, when we grew up, I never knew the term, honestly, right?
Yeah.
And very loosely they use these terms. Can you tell me why that is happening?
I would say our exposure to the internet, all of that first gives us access to terms like this, right? And we hear it in a different context. We might use it in a different context. Now, one thing that I'm happy about is that kids know how to like open up emotionally, talk about things that they're going through, all of these things. But I think sometimes we take it to a whole different extreme where everything becomes something that's toxic. So, you know, we have kids who come to us and they say that my parents are toxic. And so, of course, there's like alarm bells and we wonder, what is that? And then they say, you know, they take my phone away and, you know, they don't let me watch Netflix during weekdays. Now, you know, I'm sure that's very difficult for you, but there are cases where there are actual like toxic parenting that happens where either they get beat or whatever it is, right? So I think we know all of these terminologies. We use it loosely, which shouldn't be the case. So, yeah.
Okay. And one more question. When I grew up, getting hit by the parent is very normal.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it worked for us.
Okay.
Now, the question is, the generation now, parents should hit or not?
I would still say no hitting.
No hitting.
Yeah, because
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens, I this is something in my podcast with my mom, I keep saying, right? If you had a issue with your boss, would you go slap your boss? No, you would not. It's as simple as that. When you know that, I know, first of all, you don't own your child, right? They come through you and that's something. So, and you know that the child is younger in a place where, you know, they can't, like, just, I think it creates a lot of negative emotions in a child. I think there are different ways of disciplining
So
a child.
nothing like communicating and what you can't communicate, because hitting doesn't help at all.
It really doesn't, right? And you're normalizing a behavior.
Yeah.
So today you're hitting your child and you're saying it's okay. So tomorrow if their partner hits them, will they think that that is okay? It really makes you ask these questions, right? And it really creates a child is supposed to feel safe around a parent. And the minute you start hitting or letting anger and all of that take the better of you, then you're really opening up that place where your child cannot be emotionally vulnerable. I've had a situation where the child was so used to being beat by his mom that when he became older, he slapped the mom back.
Okay.
And said, "You're not going to hit me anymore. I'm done." So, you know, we don't want those extreme cases to happen, right? So it's always better. I'm not saying like, you know, gentle parenting works for everyone, but I'm saying this is also, it was abusive back when you were being hit, but it's not
I know.
okay.
See, our generation was completely different. It was normal, correct? And I don't think we should do it. Because what you say is bang on. I agree with you. I think that's better way of communicating. It's better to communicate, be open, tell what you're not okay with it, tell why you're not okay with it, and make the kid understand. Because I think we have a very smart generation now.
We really do.
We have an extremely smart generation and they'll get it.
Yeah.
And they'll get it. And that's all you need to do. Just become a friend for your kid.
Yes.
I think that will solve a problem. I just want to take this moment and thank you and Dr. Shamila. What you guys do in Instagram is amazing. The content you guys put together gives both the perspective from the kid's side and the parent's side, which is very critical for people to know. People need to put themselves in both sides to understand an issue.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a fabulous job. And the intention of this podcast was very simple. We want the kids to be happy. We want the parents to understand the kids, and we want the parents to be happy. And as we started by saying, we do not want suicides to ever happen in this country.
Yeah.
That's the intention of this podcast. So we have a tradition here. We call it 3 to 1. Okay. And you have no idea what the 3 to 1 is. Okay. 3. If you have a magic wand.
Yeah.
And the 3 things you can change for the kids here.
Yeah.
What would you change?
I would definitely change the education system.
Okay,
That
I
would be
think we
my
spoke a
number
lot
one.
about it. Yeah.
The second thing I would change is, parents who don't give children the space to be themselves, all of that. I really wish I could take that away
Mm.
and make that better. The third thing I would change is, for any child who feels like I'm not good enough, I am not pretty, I'm not handsome, and all of these self-esteem issues, I wish I could take it away.
One shot.
On shot.
Just
I
do that.
really wish I could magic wand it, take it away, make them see that they are, this young leader in the making, that the world is their oyster, anything that they want to do, they can do, and that they are good enough, and they're more than good enough. And that, if they stop listening to the chatters of the world and they really just lock in on, what is it that they want to do, they will unlock magic.
I love the 3 things you for magic wand, but as you rightly said, one of the things we also do at Success Gyan is we really want people to know they're good enough.
Yeah.
They're worthy enough.
Yeah.
They deserve the world. That's all. And the world is for you. It's a playground for you to play.
Yes.
And you deserve anything and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's 3. 2, what do I say? 2 mentors or teachers you're thankful to.
You.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, and I will say why. Because I think when I first met you, I think I was 13 years old. And I was in a period where I wasn't studying well, low self-confidence, all of that. And I would always be grateful for how you've mentored me and how you continue to mentor me. Because I think my life would have gone a very different way had I not done personal development and so many other things, right? And somehow personal development helped me study better as well. So forever grateful to you. And another mentor that I'm grateful for is Blair Singer.
The master of masters, the magician, Blair Singer.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ashley, I just want to say that I've seen you from 13, 14. It's 8 years now. The way you've grown up, the inspiration you have become. I'm extremely proud of you. I just want to say that here, extremely proud of you. And the way you're giving back, right? Because you went through a situation when you came to a room. We remember that. Today, you want kids not to go through that and go faster and really live the life of their dreams.
Yes.
So thank you for doing what you're doing. So the last one thing, what do I ask? What do I ask? Okay. One value system of yours which has brought you here.
Being honest with myself.
Okay.
So anything that, I don't gaslight myself. So anything, I take a note of the habits that I have, the people that, I hang out with. And it's about being brutally honest about what needs change, what I'm doing well. So all of those things. So honesty.
I love that, Ashley. Okay. Your final greater than message for people watching this podcast.
So if you are a teenager or a young adult watching, just know that you are good enough. You are more than good enough. You are a leader in the making. So, really tune out all of the noise and listen to what is that one thing that you want to share to the world and go share that. And if you are a parent watching, I know it is difficult and I know that parenting hasn't come with a manual and that it's been this roller coaster journey. So first, thank you for doing what you do. And the one thing that I would love to say to you is that be there for your child wherever or however they need, because that is the one thing that they will really, really thank you later in their life for, and that they will always and forever remember. It will make your relationship so much deeper. So yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. That was an amazing, amazing conversation. Looking forward for many more such conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying till the end. This podcast is about helping you shift perspectives, push your limits, and take steps that actually move you forward. Just remember that you're greater than anything life throws at you. I am Surendran Jaishekhar signing off. Love yourself. Don't take life too seriously. Live a life of meaning and purpose.